Is your team not performing well? Is morale low and turnover high? Are you falling further behind the competition? I'm here to help. I'm your host, Shani, and this is the Leadership Show, where business strategy and culture finally meet, and we make the long-awaited shift from rhetoric to results. I promise I'm not your typical boring leadership consultant, and I will help you get your shift together. Let's do this. Hello, Leadershifters, and welcome to another episode of the Leadership Show. Thrilled to have you here, and I am thrilled to have our guest today, Danny Bader. And Danny, please allow me to brag on you for a few seconds before you chime in.
Just a few seconds.
Actually, it might be more like a few minutes. So, folks, you know how you meet people in your life, in your professional life sometimes, who you may not work with for an extended period of time, but they're just someone that you want to stick around your life because you just clicked so well and you adore them and wish for their success. Well, that's Danny Bader. Like, we worked together for less than a year, I don't know, 10 years ago or something. And we've stayed in touch because you are listening to or looking at, if you're on YouTube, an exceptional human being. And
thank you, Shane.
We're going to cover a lot of ground, including, you can't even call it a near-death experience. It was an actual bona fide death experience. This man was dead. Obviously, was is the past tense because here he is. And we'll share the experience as well as the seeds that planted in his life that have grown into a flourishing garden and forest today, including being the author of 4 best-selling books, one of which has just recently been published, and I love the name of it because you know my irreverence. It's called Taking the Shit Out of the Show, right? And there's our
like that, Shani.
I love it. And you know, he's got also has a podcast, and he teaches some cool classes to corporate. So we're going to cover all that. I just wanted to give him a red carpet introduction because I am so happy to finally be interviewing you on the Leadership Show. So welcome, Danny.
Thank you, Shani. I appreciate that. And, you know, I feel the same way about you. When people cross your paths, as you said, you just click and, you know, it's very easy and you just know that they'll be in your life, you know, for a long, long time. So, yeah, it's great to be with you.
Thank you. So I guess let's start at the experience you had when you died briefly and came back, because I feel like that is the backstory that people will need to understand, you know, the concepts in your book and Jackrabbit and so forth.
Okay. Yeah, sure. So when I was 28 years of age, I graduated college, had a couple of jobs, and was trying to figure out life. You know, as you and I talked about, I lived in Aspen for a couple of winters out there, tending bar and skiing. And I'm 28 and I'm working as a bartender outside of Philadelphia. And I'm also working with 2 wonderful guys, Bruce and Stu, that were brothers, and they had a roofing company. So some days I would put roof on and, you know, tending bar and just trying to figure out life. And July 28th, 92, Bruce and I were lowering a metal ladder at the end of the day, and we thought we were clear of the electric lines, and tragically we hit one, only by about an inch or two, so a very slim margin of error. And it had 8,000 to 10,000 volts of electricity in it. And, you know, that electricity came down the metal ladder and went into both of our bodies, and it killed both of us. And I came back to life. We didn't. Bruce didn't. We lost him that day. Wonderful man, father, brother. So I was dead probably for 8 to 10 minutes, according to the other brother, Stu, who, you know, was not involved in the accident. He came down and went to work on me with CPR and things. So I was in the hospital then for about 10 days after that. You know, I got out, my friend Bruce was buried already, and I just went into that dark place of blame and guilt and, you know, trying to figure it out, and I don't deserve to be happy. And, you know, you drink way too much, you know, you sleep with people you shouldn't sleep with. You're just doing anything to kind of ease the pain.
Right.
And none of it's working. So, yeah, that's kind of the backstory. And I wrote about that in my first book called Back to Life. And the path of resilience. And it's fictionalized a bit, but very much based on, you know, that journey of me getting through that dark time with the help of a lot of wonderful people, and kind of getting, back to life and looking for some fulfillment in my life.
Right. And I can't help but ask, and if there is no answer to this question, just say so. Do you remember what you experienced during that 8 to 10 minutes?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, when I got hit by the electricity, I said to Bruce, "Are we going to be clear of these wires?" And he said, "Yeah, we did it this way this morning." And I said, "Okay." And I had that kind of feeling in your belly, the intuition, like, "Oh man, I don't know about this." And I didn't pay attention to it, and we hit the wire. And that surge of electricity that went through me, it actually went in my hands, and then it put holes in both sides of both feet. And it went out my boots and my socks. And there was no blood coming out of the holes when I went in and looked there, because it was all cauterized. So initially I got hit. I had an absolute calm and a peace. I knew I was dying. The interesting part is this, and I use that word interesting because there's no other word to use. It was very hard to write in the book, Shaney, because I'm trying to describe in the language that we all know this incident, this occurrence, this experience that is not describable in these words. It was of another world. So I have an absolute calm and a peace, and I feel as though I'm standing, and I look and I see Stu, who was still on the roof. He's coming down off the ladder, and I'm yelling to him, "Stewie, get Bruce. Stewie, get Bruce." I wasn't yelling, "Help me, save me," which you would do if you were conscious, I guess, right? So I was there, but I kind of wasn't. And then the best way to describe it, Shaney, is my soul, as I believe. Some people may call it energy, life force, universe, consciousness, intuition, whatever it is.
Yeah.
What I know is my heart, my lungs, and my brain contribute to making Danny Bader go.
Yeah.
And there's another energy that really makes me go. And I believe it, I believe it's my divine energy that's connected to source, to God.
Yeah.
And my energy left my body, and I felt pulling away, no more body, and I was joined with it. And it was beautiful and peaceful and floating and kind of dark in a good way, right? Like almost like the womb, like very comforting. And I had this conversation, not in words, but a very cosmic conversation of, do you want to stay or go back? And I didn't want to go back. And then I expressed love and concern for my mom and my girlfriend, Lisa, who's now my wife of 28 years.
Yeah.
And as soon as I did, I was back in my body. And I couldn't move for a moment or two. And I heard Stu was working on Bruce, trying to revive him. And then I got my motor skills, and I crawled over up next to Stu, and he looks at me and he says, "How are you here?" And I'm like, "I don't know what you're talking about." So I started to do mouth to mouth, and he did chest, compressions. And then the paramedics and the police got there. So I looked reasonably okay at this point. So they got there, and they said, "All right, you guys, we got it. We'll work on your buddy here." And I went and sat against the fence, and my feet are killing me. So now I look down, there's little holes. I take them off, holes in the sock, take them off, holes in my feet. I'm like, what the fuck is happening here?
Right.
God. Stewie comes over and says the same thing, what happened? And I said, "I guess we hit the wire." And he said, "You did, I heard it." And I said, "I know, I saw you coming down the ladder, and I was yelling to you." And this first time we spoke. And he said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Stewie, I saw you coming down. I was yelling to you, get Bruce." And he said, "You didn't say anything." He said, "I came down the ladder. I came to you first. You were on your side. I rolled you over. I worked on you for 3-4 minutes. And your eyes are rolled back, foam all over your mouth, no heart rate." And he said, I gave you up for dead. And I ran across the street, and I'm just thinking to myself, we killed Dan." And he called 911. So, that's a minute or two on that phone call, ran back past me, still dead. And that's when he started to work on his brother. And then I crawled up. So we lost Stu 5 years ago. He died far too young at 64. Just the other day was his anniversary of his death. And, we would go out for beers and cheesesteaks. We live outside of Philly. So we were brothers for sure. And he would always say, "Dan, you had to be dead for 8 or 10 minutes. If I kind of think about, I worked on you, I ran and made a call, I ran back." And so that's kind of the backstory. And, moving through that difficult time in my life was really the foundation for me to say, okay, I want to just support people on this journey as best I can. Not that I have all the answers,
Right.
But just to support them, and that's
Right.
that's kind of what I've committed my life to.
Right. Okay, so from there, you did some other interesting things, including being like the top David Allen getting things done facilitator and consultant for a period of time. And fast forward, you became, DannyBader.com and went out on your own.
Right.
So tell us about your journey there and how that experience has influenced the kind of work that you do now.
Yes. Yeah. Great. Thanks, Shani. Yeah. So around late 1990s, I went to work in corporate America at MBNA, a credit card company. And I wasn't such a good fit for corporate, although I found my way over to learning and development and doing workshops and some Myers-Briggs work and leadership development. And I'm like, man, this is it, So then I left there and was fortunate enough to have somebody from the Hudson Institute, where I got my coaching certification out in Santa Barbara, connect me with David Allen, who wrote a great book called Getting Things Done. And I worked for him for probably 5 or 6 years and learned an awful lot. And, I appreciate you saying I was a top facilitator. And, we there are a lot of great people there. There were just a lot of wonderful facilitators there, Wayne Pepper and some other folks. So then I left and worked at another firm for a little bit, and then kind of said, okay, I'm a big boy now. I just turned 50, and I thought, let's just go out on your own. So have been out there working. I guess the people say, well, what do you deliver? I kind of put it under the umbrella of purposeful productivity. So I can still do a little bit of the Outlook. Let me help you with your email, set up your to-do list and all that kind of stuff. Right. And then the question is,
the 4 Ds: do it, delete it, defer it, or delegate it.
Delegate. Yeah, I think I call it capture, convert, organize. We all have. They've been around forever. But what's important is the purposeful. Because I'll say to people, listen, I died once, man, and I came back, and when I was there, nobody asked me about what I did. Did I hit my big, hairy, audacious goals? How much money did I make? What did I drive?
Right. Did you hit above zero?
Yeah, that's all important. I mean, I'll say to people, listen, go out, if money and wealth and things, go make as much as you can, hit your goals. I want that for you. And I want you to make sure that the rest of life comes along with it. So that's really the message, and I think you and I are kindred spirits on that path.
Absolutely. And just for, putting a fine point on it, you guys, the workshop is called Managing Yourself and Your Stuff, which I love the informality of that.
Yes, yeah, a little irreverence there too that you and I share, right?
Yes.
I had somebody in corporate one time. We had to change the title. It's a big financial institution, because that's stuff is not really a corporate term. I'm like, all right, you call it whatever you want.
Oh my God! So what did they make you change?
But we all know what our stuff means, right?
What did they make you change it to?
I think it was the path of purposeful productivity.
Oh, okay. I mean, that sounds
cool too.
Sounds nice.
Yeah, it's all good.
Right. Okay. And then the other workshop that you're known for is Renew, which is both has a meaning in and of itself as a word, and is also an acronym, of which I am a huge fan. Like, I do acronyms all the time. So give us, a quick rundown on what Renew means.
Yeah, so Renew is really the definition of Renew, and it kind of came out of COVID when people said to me, all right, Danny, my people are freaking out. Can we do a Zoom call for 90 minutes or 2 hours and, just support them moving through this? So I thought, okay, Renew is to come back to an activity that was interrupted. That's what Renew means. And it was certainly, life was really interrupted. Sure. And so I just kind of broke that down into the acronym, and it's to recall. So we actually have to go, when we're getting ready to renew, we got to go back, right? We got to clean up the past, leave some shit behind, and also identify anything that we need to pull forward still, that still has our focus. And then we need to engage in the now. So be very present, so practice that mindfulness. Yeah. And is to narrate the next chapter. E is to evolve and then welcome the wisdom. So I just kind of take people through that acronym, and with some exercises. We write a vision in there. We get into a little bit of our mindset and our belief. And welcoming the wisdom really is, it's really the basis for the fourth book, Taking the Shit Out of the Show, is how do you get to a point in life And I don't want to say it's not easy, because then we're putting that label on it. I don't give a shit if it's easy or if it's not. How do you and I and everybody else, how do we get to the point to realize that life is a beautiful journey and it unfolds the way it unfolds? You know, if you believe in a God, you know, he or she is not up there pulling all the strings behind the curtain. You know, that he or she created this, and it unfolds. And there's accidents and disease and illness and you know, infidelity and loss of life and all the shit we got to deal with. So welcoming the wisdom is really just to get to that point. You know, it's very connected to the Stoic philosophy as well. You know, the Stoics all said, hey, you know, misfortune is going to show up.
Right.
So let's not let it knock you off your feet, you know, when it shows up. And understand that moving through misfortune is really fertile ground to continue to grow and get stronger and gain more wisdom.
For sure. And I like that you mentioned that, because I feel like there's a misconception about what Stoicism really is. I think it's come to mean loosely, for people who don't know about Stoicism actually as a philosophy, and they just know the word Stoic. People think of it as indifferent or unemotional, and that's actually not what it means at all.
No, right. Yeah, it's there's a great resource out there called the Daily Stoic, and I subscribe to it, and I get daily emails from them. I've drawn a blank on the guy's name behind that whole movement, but it's really good. You know, the emails come in and just kind of remind me of some strong basic principles for us as human beings. And you know, it's a lot of the old philosophers, and then a lot of leaders, you know, in our contemporary world practice that as well. But Seneca, I think it was Seneca that captured it pretty well. And he said, you know, I feel sorry for you. I'll paraphrase. I feel sorry for you, those of you who have not experienced misfortune, you know, because you don't know how strong you could be. And that really kind of sums everything up, you know.
Right. Well, you know, this reminds me of the first chapter of my book, The Better Boss Blueprint, which equally irreverent is, you know, it's a leadership book, but chapter 1 is get your own shit together first. That really is the first step in being a mindful, purposeful leader, because you certainly can't help others if you're a mess. And we're going to be a mess at times in our life. As you said, shit happens. And we've got to be role models for, you know, processing it, like not letting it get bottled up, moving through it, and being vulnerable enough to share it with our people so they can see the humanity of their leadership and take those, you know, internalize those values and those lessons. So in that spirit of leadership, I want to ask you about my personal experiences over the last 2.5 years, roughly. And, you know, folks, I'm not asking you to get out a violin. I'm just, you know, kind of going to go down a list of the things that have happened literally in this compressed period of time, and then ask Danny's opinion on how he would advise me. So in the last 2.5 years, I have gotten divorced, which, although amicable, was incredibly painful and emotional for both of us. My mom died of a horrible cancer. My stepmom died of a horrible cancer. Another important maternal figure in my life, guess what? Died of cancer and some other diseases that she had had chronically. Sticking on the death theme, I had to put both my cats, they were twin brother and sister of almost 17 years, to sleep 6 months apart this year. Let's see what else. Of course, there was COVID, which everyone experienced the downsides of. And, you know, in particular, as an independent consultant in the corporate space, my business ground to almost zero for 6 or 8 months last year and is still recovering. Not sure I covered it all, but that's probably enough. And taking those things collectively over such a short period of time might have caused some people to just hide under a bed and never come out.
Right. Drinking martinis at 10 in the morning, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, with the wisdom that you've been writing about and processing yourself, like, had I had a harder time being resilient, like, what would you advise? Because I know those of you listening have been through your own versions of hell.
Yeah, well, number one, if I was with you, I'd give you a big hug right there and not say anything and just let the human spirits that we both have kind of do a little bit of work there.
Right.
The human spirit is hardly human, right? So oftentimes it's just acknowledging the pain that we're all feeling. So I would certainly do that first. And then I think there's some basic principles that get us through those times. And it's not unicorns and rainbows where you get through it in a day or two. It's just to kind of surrender to the brutal facts of your shit show, right? And the brutal facts are the pain and the uncertainty and the loss and the regret and the despair, all those things that show up, and they're there. And taking the shit out of the show, a lot of people go, well, how can you do that? And plus, Danny, you always say that you grow through difficult times. So taking the shit out of the show is not removing those brutal facts of it. It's rather, how are you dealing with it? Are you letting life win? Which it almost beat me when I was looking at hoses to put in my tailpipe and run through my passenger window and just go to sleep. Are you going to let life win? Or are you going to, say, okay, yeah, it just kicked the shit out of me and I'm still here. And now how do I move through this? Yeah. So a couple of things that I think are real powerful, the basis for my Jackrabbit methodology is vision. So when we're going through a difficult time, it's really powerful to see the other side of it. Mm-hmm. So for you, I might say, all right, Shani, here we are on November 18th right now. Let's spin forward to July 1st. If life is really good for you over these next 7 or 8 months, what needs to be real for you? With your business, your health, and your relationship, and your healing, what needs to be real? And we take some time and get that story written out, so that if we were together on July and I say, okay, Shani, I haven't seen you in 8 months, how's everything? And you go, it's great. I'm like, why? What are you going to tell me that happened in those 8 months? And how did you make them happen? Right? So what were some of the kind of the steps? Not the actual email, not the actual action steps of I emailed and called this person. It's just, okay, here's what I did. I got my other book out. I developed a new course. I met another guy. I healed through the loss of these 3 wonderful women that were in my life. How did I do that? Well, I did meditation, whatever it might be. So it helps to kind of tell your story, because that will create, I think, 2 things. Number one, inspiration, which is the energy inside of us. Motivation a lot of times comes externally from people and books and movies and podcasts, and they're all great. And you don't want to rely on them. You want to have the ability that says, okay, what do I do? How do I think that gets my ass out of bed when I don't want to get my ass out of bed? So it's that ability to develop, a vision. Some other things I think is the support. Support is really key for us. So who in your life is here to support you? What books in your life have supported you? Let's read them again. What podcasts, what people support you? Your self-talk is a big portion of that. Taking the shit out of the show, it's 7 short stories, and it's people that are going through, loss. So it's kind of, what are you saying to yourself about this? And how can you catch when it's not useful thoughts, and just say, okay, what if I were to say the opposite of this? What if I was to say this about my situation? And then, okay, once you get clear on that, you go, okay, if somebody really said that and really believed that, what would they do right now? So then you struggle through the fear and the anger, and you push through to taking some actions that are pretty uncomfortable for you. And the more the more you move that, then you're on that path of kind of healing and moving through it.
Right.
So there's a couple things,
I love that. And it's quintessential wisdom. And it also reminds me of Byron Katie's The Work, if you're familiar with her. And, as she tries to help people through mindset shifts, or it's more like stuck beliefs where you're digging your heels in, like, my manager's an asshole.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Right. And so then she'd say, well, is that true? And the person will say, oh, of course it's true. He's just such a jerk and everybody hates him.
Right.
Second question is it 100% true? Like every moment of every day of every month of every year?
Sure.
Okay, well, not really. I mean, there might be 5 minutes a week where he's a decent guy. Okay,
Right.
well, who are you when you dig in your heels on that belief? Oh, well, I'm bitter and I'm annoyed and
Yep.
blah, blah,
Yep.
blah, all the bad
Yep.
things. And then it's like, who are you when you can let go of that belief? Oh, breakthrough,
Yeah. Nice big breath. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What we think is so important to moving through our shit shows. I know when I had that accident, oftentimes I share, a little diagram with people. The outer ring is your outcomes, the next your life, the next one is your actions, the next one is your feelings and your emotions, and then the middle is your mindset and your beliefs. So it's like the way that we think puts us into an emotional state where we act from mostly that produces it. So I'll just say, hey, I had that accident, a tragic accident, and my beliefs were I screwed up. It's my fault. His kids don't have a dad. Nobody understands what I'm going through. God screwed this up. I don't deserve to be happy. So if that's what I'm telling myself, the emotional state becomes victim. The actions are all destructive, drinking and everything else, and you're on the verge of self-destruction. Nobody else thought that way. Everybody else in Bruce's widow, Stu, everybody that was there said, hey man, tragic accident. You are a responsible guy. He loved you. He would want you to get on with your life. God didn't screw this up. It just unfolds. God's not there to protect you from that. God's there to give you strength to move through it. So as soon as I started to have that perspective and the shift, I'm like, all right, shit, I got to get better. I got to get through this.
Right.
And, with the help of spirit and a lot of great people, you move through that. So yeah, you're spot on, talking about the ability for us to kind of hold those useful thoughts and be really good at capturing and being aware of when those shitty voices show up, because that's what they are, just shitty. I have a guy I just call ST, stands for shitty thoughts. And when I'm having them, I catch myself and I look and I go, okay, ST, how you doing, man? You're here. I got it. I don't need you right now. So you're done. And sometimes it's that easy just to acknowledge that you're not your thoughts, rather you're the thinker of them.
Yeah. I love that. I was talking to somebody else about this kind of thing pretty recently and reframing it from, like struggling with those thoughts and battling with ST, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, no, what would it be like to just like, okay, take the thought in, not struggle to get rid of it,
right?
Because it never feels good to fight, even if it is with your internal dialogue. It's
almost like you imagine open up a door, and you see ST. I mean, give him or her a physical appearance, and you just you play out your scene like you just open the door and you push his ass out and you say, okay, I'm good. All right, now let me get what thought can I hold right now about creating what I want, moving through this, surrendering to some pain, whatever it might be. It's pretty powerful. In the book, Taking the Shit Out of the Show, there's 7 stories, and the 6th one is this young girl named Jess, and she's in high school, and she's the #1 basketball recruit, right, female in high school, and her mom's a nut, and she just has a lot of anxiety. Jess does now, and Sammy, who's the character from my first book, you probably remember. Sammy is the main character in this book that drops into each person as they're dealing with their shit show. And she offers this concept to Jess about these nasty thoughts. And Jess names her guy Nasty. That's what she said. It's nasty. And so now it becomes a skill for Jess, right? To understand when they're going into the championship game and all these thoughts are like, shit, what if we lose? What will that do to my scholarship? What if I have a bad game? My mom's going to freak out, right? All real. Okay. Hey, Nasty, stop. All right. Have I prepared? Am I practiced? My team is healthy. How can I relax? How can I focus on being in the moment of the game and not so much attached to the outcome?
Right.
And, Jeff says to Sammy, yeah, but if we lose, it would still suck. And Sammy smiles and says, compared to what?
Right.
And Jess goes, I got it. So, you and I know anytime we're coaching somebody and they get into that, oh my God, this sucks and everything else. Yeah, we validated it does. It's not where you want to be. But then they go, well, it really sucks. And I'll just say, compared to what? And then trust me, they go, what do you mean? I said, well, I got a lot of examples of people in my life right now that have suffered or are suffering. And what you got right now is something we need to deal with. And you might want to reframe that. Because, it looks like you can get up and you can walk and do everything right now. Nobody's wiping your ass or putting you in bed. So you want to get rolling on this? And it's usually enough to go, yeah, okay, take a breath. Let's go.
Yeah. And instead of, not that you can forget what happened or, glorify what happened. It is the past. And we live life forward. And, it might take some people longer than others to get to that place of, okay, I'm parking it and getting back on the road.
Yeah.
And
that's
I guess.
Okay. You're right, Shani. It takes time. I often say, listen, you can't shorten the path to get through your shit show.
Yeah.
It's almost like those board games we used to do where every now and again, if you landed on this space, you could shorten it, Chutes and Ladders, whatever it's called. A lot of times with our shit shows, you can't shorten it.
Right. There's no hacks to the emotional journey.
No.
There's no 4-hour work day or whatever that book is, to teach you to, hack your professional life. There's none of that for big emotional journeys.
You are gonna move through your challenges according to how you're gonna move through your challenges.
Yeah. And that's all good, right? No judgment except the self-judgment that is nasty or ST.
You got it. So I won't focus. People go, how long do you think till I feel better? I'm like, I don't know. Although here's the thing, while we're on that path right now, here's the principles you need to keep applying. And they may give you enough strength that in 3 or 4 months you go, shit, I'm back. That was a rough time. I remember people, I honor their memory, and I'm back. Or it might be 8 months. Just what are those principles? How am I thinking? How am I saying? Where's my support? And then another key one, me, is to trust in something bigger. You have got to kind of just surrender. I'm not talking about going to church or whatever works for you.
Right.
Just understand that there is an energy inside of you. I saw Mr. Marriott, Bill Marriott, the CEO of, the CEO that founded Marriott. He said, you cannot, when all this went down, and that company took a huge hit, right? Hotels. He said, you cannot quarantine the human spirit.
Oh, I love that.
Isn't that powerful? And
yes.
That's the thing, regardless of any shit that's going on, that energy is there. And when people tap into that, they're the inspirational stories we hear, right?
Yeah.
About moving through tragedy and the concentration camps, people who have survived them, and people who have overcome just brutal consequences in life and situations.
Right. That's a good reference to compared to what, the things that people have lived. Not that the things that we're living through in an average year are easy, but compared to 5 years in Auschwitz, or it's like.
Sure. For many of us, the likelihood of us moving on through COVID and living another 10, 15, 20 years is very, very good. I got some people in my life that's not the case, so perspective is a powerful thing to get, man. And again, it doesn't eliminate the brutal facts you're dealing with. That's the thing. Too many people, positive thinking, sugarcoat rainbows. Oh, you'll be okay. This is okay. It's not okay. It sucks.
Right. It's putting lipstick on a pig.
Right. And what actions can we take right now? And when you feel like shit and you feel like you can't go on, what's your strategy to get out of it?
Yeah.
Who do you call? What do you say? Where do you go? What action do you take? And that's the key. Just recognize when you're there and then have that strategy to get out of it. So you have a couple little drips of dopamine. You start to get a couple little wins. You feel some oxytocin from a friend, that human connection. And then your brain's dripping in some of those good chemicals and you go, okay, I feel a little better. We can do this.
to close the loop on what I went through and the things I did to recover, just in case it resonates for any of the leadershifters, when it came to my mom, it was like drawing closer to my sister. I would say we had more of a superficial relationship as adults because our lives are so different, but that really brought us together, and we leaned on each other in ways we didn't even know we could support each other. And through all of it, I had what I call a pit crew of, not just any friends, because I have a lot of amazing friends, but there are a subset of that group of people that I can lean on at my worst and know that they're going to show up for me emotionally, spiritually, and all that stuff. And just having them there to talk or baby me. Like I went to one of my best friend's houses in Atlanta at one point as I was struggling through my divorce. It's going to make me cry just think about it. And
that's all right. Let it rip.
It's like she took care of me like a mother, and she is a mother of 3 children. Yeah. But the loving care and the welcoming and the support was just so important.
Yeah.
And she's continued to be there, and vice versa. And so like finding those people who can be your pit crew is super important. Yeah. And then, some other things I did were, if I was in not a great place, mentally, emotionally, I tried to at least physically take care of myself and have the self-care to support me, both because that's what I could do.
Right.
Secondly, because I do enjoy it, massage and acupuncture and all those things. And also because I know just from years of experience that when I'm taking good physical care of myself, it actually leads to improved mental state. So, started doing spin again, continuing to do yoga, doing rock climbing trips, which is like rock climbing is my answer to the question, if you won the lottery, what would you do? Right. I would buy a van and go rock climbing to all the amazing places.
I love it. Yeah.
So, just focusing on the things and the people who brought me joy.
So important, right? And it's a great distinction you make there for 2 things. Your friend in Atlanta, if I had to guess, you probably laid on the couch and she covered you in a blanket and you cried a lot.
Totally.
And there's the difference where people go, oh, come on, Shani, it's okay. Get up, stop crying. Bullshit. Laying on the couch and crying is the action you need to keep moving forward. Right? Because a lot of people go out and start acting as if they're okay and they're not. And then that breakdown, it looms on the horizon. So I think that's powerful that you had that woman, that friend that lets you do that. And the other thing that's really key is, I've talked about just a little bit touching on, but really got to trust. Our words that we use, with the ST and all those, but even the words just have tremendous power. And I encourage people to remove hope from their vocabulary.
Oh, yes. And hope is not a strategy.
What? Hope. And I'm like, trust. So when you catch yourself and say, I hope I can lose this weight. I hope I can close this account. I hope I can heal this relationship. I hope I can move through this divorce. Take hope out and put trust in there. Just experiment. And most people go, holy shit, I feel so much more empowered and actionable versus hope is just, it's passive. You're just sitting there hoping everything works out. Where trusting, hope is just to want something. Trust is to have a firm belief in the reliability of someone or something.
Right.
So there's a lot of words that we use that we might want to start to kind of get out of our vocabulary. And that's a lot, in the book too, I get into dialogue with people around the words.
Right. Yes, it is. It's so true. Words matter. And speaking of words, one of the quotes that's on your website that I wanted to acknowledge and share, because it's simple but profound. There's a hell of a difference between just living and being alive.
Right.
Right. Which, is relevant on so many levels. And I can see how you even can tie that to your productivity stuff, like
Sure.
purposeful productivity. Like, are you just doing the, menial, insignificant things that keep you busy because, you tell yourself the story that that's productivity? Or
Right.
are you really focused on the priorities and taking actions towards achieving your goals and figuring out a way to spend time in the not urgent but important quadrant of the Eisenhower matrix?
Right. Yeah, no, it is. Living for me, and I did it after the accident. It's just that it's going through the motions. Alive is different. I'm connected to my source. I've got this basic set of principles that I work to apply every day. You think about it, if somebody's dead, like let's say somebody saw me laying on the ground after that accident, they're not going to walk up and go, "Oh, is he living?" They're going to go, "Is he alive?" So that's that distinction for me. A lot more power in being alive. And people say, "Oh, you're just splitting words," but for me, alive is fully invested, connected to source, and just working every day to create some goodness and some love and some joy in the world.
Absolutely. And that is nobody's responsibility but ours.
That's it. That is it. We own that.
So I wanted to also toot your horn on the other books, just so that people know the library of Danny Bader's best-selling books. So you mentioned the first one, Back from Heaven's Front Porch was the original title of a book that told the story of your death experience. And I believe it's been renamed Abraham's Diner, Simple Wisdom for Moving from Stress to Relaxed Focus and Inspiration.
Right. Well, no, you're correct in that Back from Heaven's Front Porch was the story. It was published in 2012. I had a small publisher, some great people that helped me get started. And then I re-released it with another title. It's called Back to Life.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And what I did is, new title.
Backwards.
Yep, that's okay. New title, new cover. And then it's interesting. In the first version of the book, the last time you see Jake, who is Danny Bader in the book, he's 28. I don't want to get into it too much, but he returns back home from a trip and he sees his mom, and that's it. And then oftentimes people have always asked, what happened to Jake? So in the Back to Life book, I wrote another chapter that picks up with Jake at his 50th birthday party. And it kind of a lot of the blanks, and a couple characters show up in mystical ways. So that's good. Then Abraham's Diner is the second one, just a short little fable. And it's about an executive, Patrick, who lives in Southern California, makes a ton of money, and is just stressed out from work. And, his wife's ready to leave him because she's like, "I didn't sign up for this." They moved to Southern California so he could surf with his two sons, and his two sons are like, "Dad, you never are out in the water with us." So just a little fable around, getting some balance in life.
Right. And then tell us about the other book, which I also absolutely love this title. I Met Jesus for a Miller Lite.
Yeah. So I Met Jesus for a Miller Lite was my third one. And, a lot of times people, when I give them out in corporate, they'll go, "Wait, is that religious? It says Jesus." And I'm like, "Well, not really, because it says Miller Lite too. Just relax, Jesus
Right.
and Miller Lite
They cancel each other out.
Yeah. And one woman said to me, she said, "Well, Jesus was a wine guy anyhow." I'm like, "Yeah, right on. Water to wine, all that." So that's a story, all fiction, based on experiences that I've seen people in life. Michael's the main character, and he graduates college. He's a recruited running back. He gets drafted into the NFL, and he's very type A. So he's like, "I'm going to play 10 or 12 years, make a lot of money, and then I'm going to do this and this and this." And he starts to get concussions, and now everybody's going, he's a hell of a running back, but he's kind of damaged goods. So he goes and plays in the Canadian Football League, and he's just trying to figure out life. And his best friend's young wife has cancer, and another friend of theirs lost their dad in a tragic accident. So it's just this group of people that are kind of struggling a bit in life. And then this guy crosses paths with Michael, and he drives a convertible Camaro, and he's got an iPhone. He wears a New Orleans Saints hat, and I'll let you kind of guess who that might be.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, I enjoy writing. They're simple reads. If people there are listening and they just like simple reads, with some powerful principles that kind of slow them down and get them to reflect on their life, these books would probably work for them. If they want Hemingway or something like that, they probably don't want to read Danny Bader.
Right. Well, I mean, I think your stuff is so much more relatable than some pedantic, boring, leadership book that is like all high and mighty and whatever. Your stuff is so relatable, and people really resonate more with stories than lecture and theory. And one of the books I recommend to almost every leader I've ever coached is Leadership and Self-Deception by the Arbinger Institute, which is also super powerful book, but written in parable form. And so I gravitate to your kind of teaching and writing because it's so much more memorable.
Right. Yeah, I think when you give people characters and titles and companies and the Arbinger Institute, that's a great one. So who was the CEO there? That woman's name, I'm drawing a blank. It's a female CEO, right?
Well, in the first book, it's a male CEO who's just like the textbook jerk, and it's his number two, who's the woman who has this much more enlightened view of leadership.
Right.
And her leaving the company because she's had it up to here is what prompted his growth journey. And
that's a brilliant book.
Absolutely. So, I mean, not to overshadow yours, it just made me think of it.
That's fine. No. You know how I'm fine.
So how do people find your books and find you?
Great. Thank you, Shani. The website is DannyBader.com. So they can get out there and take a look, videos, speaking, training courses, all that kind of stuff. We've also got an online course called Back to Life, and it's 29 videos where they could just get in and self-paced of me walking them through some jackrabbit principles, some exercises. And the books are all on Amazon. I self-publish all 4 of them, and they're all out there so they can check them out. A couple of reviews. I think I've only got about 3 or 4 reviews on taking the shit out of the show so far. So
once I read it, you'll have 5.
Oh, well, thank you, my dear. Thank you.
And once all of you read it, in fact, it's funny enough, I recommended it yesterday and sent the Amazon link to a coaching client of mine, because I'm like, hey, what's on your mind today? And she's like, oh, this place is a shit show. And I was like, funny you should say that, because I'm interviewing an old friend of mine tomorrow whose new book is Take the Shit Out of the Show. And she's like, oh my God, I love that. Send me the link. So the first thing I did was finish the call. So already selling your book for you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'll buy a cocktail when I get down to Fort Lauderdale.
Yes. Awesome. So Danny, thank you so much for the close personal stories that you shared with us today, and the wisdom, and just your presence is calming and empathetic, and I feel like this is going to be one of my most popular episodes because there's a magnetism and of course a chemistry as I interviewed you and you responded that I think people are really going to enjoy. Let me just recap some of the highlights because I've been taking notes. Purposeful productivity. How many of you are actually sticking to that versus, striving for inbox zero, which takes a lot of time and energy away from the major things that you could be doing? And, I hate to use the word should, but, sometimes we do should on ourselves. And when you do face a shit show, process it, welcome it, don't struggle with it, figure out how to deal with it, and ultimately don't let life win once you acknowledge it and ask that question that I think is so brilliant, Danny. Like, what needs to be real, 6 months from now, 12 months from now, whatever it is, to look back and then be on a better path, because it's so forward looking and visionary to be able to answer that question as you tell your own story and be the author of that story. What support do you need when you're going through a shit show? How do you manage that self-talk, that ST shitty talk, which I love that way of thinking about it. And, another thing that inspired me so much was you sharing Bill Marriott's quote that you can't quarantine the human spirit. So what does that look like for you if you're listening and you're going through a horrifying experience? How can you draw upon your own human spirit and those of others who can support you to help, bring you back to where you want to be? And then last but not least, to me, one of the pearls of wisdom today was replace the word hope with the word trust. Might seem like a nuance. It's really not. It's super important. So anything else you'd like to add to the summary or even new information as we close out?
No, Shani, that was perfect. I appreciate you taking some notes and capturing those nuggets. And I think they all, what you just spoke of, they're all that kind of foundation for the ageless, timeless principles that have been around for a long, long time that support us as human beings in creating a wonderful life for ourselves and moving through the difficult times when it's not so wonderful. So thanks, you did it. You did a great wrap up there.
Yeah. All right. Amen. Leadershifters, thanks for joining us today. I really hope you enjoyed Danny as much as I did. You know how to reach him, DannyBader.com, to find the books, the workshops, the online course, and of course to reach me, Shani, at theleadershipproject.com. Follow me on social media, which are all the Leadership Project. Look forward to hearing you with some feedback and even some suggestions of your own for fabulous guests for the Leadershifter Show. Until next time. Mwah.
Take care, everybody. Thanks, Shani.